With The Batman, there's filmmaking and production elements across the board that stand out in a genre which traditionally involves more of the same. Director Matt Reeves and cinematographer Greig Fraser went for something vastly different to what we usually see in comic book films. And because I've continuously discussed my thoughts on the use of effective cinematography in this film before, I thought now that the film has been released on HBO Max and that I'd had a chance to watch it again, I wanted to discuss more on what makes it so effective. From it being used as an extension of character to the simplicity of it, there's many distinct ways in which Fraser has gone about capturing this new take on Batman. In this video essay, I'm going to be discussing Greig Fraser's cinematography in The Batman and how it stands out from the comic book film photography we see in many projects today. But before I get into it, if you want to keep up to date on any of my future content on The Batman, its sequels, and the HBO Max spin-off shows, then don't forget to support this video by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, let's dive into my video essay on the Batman cinematography. So fresh off of his Oscar win for Dune, cinematographer Greig Fraser has given us some more stunning work with Matt Reeves The Batman. He re-teamed with the filmmaker following his photography on Let Me In, and like the previous work with Reeves, they wanted to make sure that this film was extremely focused on the main character. The cinematography had to capture Bruce Wayne's point of view, and with Let Me In, we very much saw that approach with the character of Oscar. And not to mention that both films share a similar approach to filming dark scenes, with moments being lit up by individual or limited sources of light, and also the borrowing of shots in the car crash scene that was also featured in that film too. Matt Reeves has gone on record saying that he wanted to work with the cinematographer since their success on that project, and both of them have a similar and emotional response to the lighting of the scenes they capture. But what made this more of a challenge on The Batman was that with COVID having took its toll on the filming and production, they had to come up with strategies to film certain sequences that made it into the final cut. And this included the use of ILM stagecraft technology, which involved shooting scenes in front of huge LED screens that could be adjusted to exactly the right background image, or in the case of camera movement, motion. While watching the behind-the-scenes documentary that came out last week, it's seen that this technology has been rapidly evolving in the years that it's been used on big-budget productions, and one of them even involves Fraser's work on The Mandalorian. Fraser saw how advanced this method of filming shots could be, how realistic the outcome, and also how manageable it could be in the form of lighting darker frames. Matt Reeves said that one of the difficult things in a movie with VFX is getting the light to be just right in the foreground of the shot, and using stagecraft allowed them to tweak the light or time of day in a way that will make it fully believable. And the shots in the movie of Batman and Gordon at the Bat Signal, Bruce driving through the Gotham streets at the start of the film, and much more were all done using this stagecraft technology. It's a way of evolving past just putting an actor in front of a green screen and it resulting in badly lit subjects or background environments and textures that look completely unrealistic. This is yet another reason why it stands out from the crowd of comic book movies that are made on bigger budgets and don't put enough work into capturing the believability that should be focused on in relation to some of the film's central ideologies. Having badly lit shots, overly CG ones, or heavily composed frames with less real components to work with doesn't do much for the longevity of the art you put to screen. And while Fraser, Reeves, and the team were limited at times during this shoot, they clearly put the effort in to capture something more real and something that visually is still more believable. Whether that's through filming in actual locations or on stagecraft using realistic environments and shot imagery. Having a greater essence on grounding the cinematography will instantly aid the type of filmmaking that revolves around making Robert Pattinson's Batman the emotional focus I was getting to before. Greig Fraser's cinematography in The Batman is essentially an extension of character. In particular, all of the technical decisions were ultimately at the service of the performances, and this was a challenge that they had to make choices around in getting the audience to really connect. One of the cinematographer's biggest challenges was finding a way to display Batman's almost nocturnal existence, as well as the ideals of darkness that tests both him and Gotham City in general. Bruce Wayne is that of the shadows, and with this being a detective noir film set mostly at night, there needed to be a detailed approach in how they would go about shooting the previously sketched frames. In an interview, Greig Fraser said, "My concern was that it might be hard to see anything, so I collected images in a document for Matt Reeves and myself. I called them Dark But Light, and those references informed certain decisions, like making sure there were almost always pools of light or bright areas in the frame. And a lot of those lighter areas involved making the main subjects in frame much more visible, that of the characters primarily." If we look at Fraser's Oscar-winning cinematography on Dune last year, we instantly see a greater pattern too. That movie dealt with using either natural lighting or light devices on set to capture a sense of authenticity. There wasn't those typical blockbuster CG shots that have no shadows on the characters or a sense of realism in the way they are lit up in front of a green screen. On Dune, they even went to the extent of using sand screens to make sure there would be no glare and that the shots were all of the right colour that they should be. Lighting only works better that way too, and like on Let Me In and The Batman, it shows that the cinematographer put a lot of thought into making sure the lighting was just right, and therefore serve the final quality of the image in differing locations. Another method used to capture the sense of emotional and character-driven cinematography was especially the use of POV shots, something that was again seen in Let Me In. Apart from the obvious examples of Batman and Riddler both using binoculars in opposingly reflective scenes, they also had moments like that of Batman walking through the crew of officers to get to the crime scene of the dead mayor. In this long walk, we see points of view from both Batman and the GCPD officers, immediately creating this sense of tension and a quite fresh relationship between them. We end that moment with an officer anxious over letting him into the crime scene, and the commissioner himself confronting our caped crusader over him being there too. Having the cinematography used in this way as a build-up to those moments gives us so much more information without much dialogue at all. It shows that Reeves, Fraser, and the whole team were more in sync with the little details in both the frame and the characters they capture. And speaking of the frame, the feeling and movement of Greig Fraser's work gave the added kinetic energy to sequences like that of the Batmobile car chase, which without could have just served as cool action scenes. The camera placement, whether up close with Batman in the Batmobile or on the side of the vehicles as the chaotic nature of the scene plays out, is connected so perfectly to the psyche of Bruce Wayne. It essentially acts as an extension of the Dark Knight's obsessiveness to chase down the criminals that come under his use of vengeance. The point of view here is more open to the audience perception, with cameras mounted on both vehicles and placed on the lap of both characters in different moments. But the nature of it and the way those scenes were filmed and edited makes it all the more a connective tissue to exactly the kind of rage that Batman is on a process of overcoming during the film's runtime. It really is a great combination of strategic positioning, supplied lighting, and point of view driven work that makes it stand out from the many action scenes we'd see in comic book films today that a lot of the time are simply there to give us the necessary moments of action. It separates it from that and becomes fully attached with the character it's presenting on screen. And the key to crafting this compact visual approach was primarily in the simplicity of each shot that Greig Fraser filmed. The cinematographer spoke in interviews for the film about how you need to focus and simplify the image, especially when we as audiences have shorter attention spans. That image needs to communicate exactly what it needs to in a short period of time, allowing the audience to work out exactly what is happening and the context of a particular moment. And as we see in The Batman, they tried to capture each moment or scene through as few shots as possible. The camera stays with the actors, often used in POV positions, and the movement of it is limited. It frames everything that is important, whether that be the perception of Batman or the communicating of something crucial in the story. It moves only when it has to, so that the audience can focus on what is happening in the scene. And as Fraser spoke about in one of his many interviews, the visual language of this film expands further through the use of urban lighting that feels very sodium vapory and very fluorescent. They use very bold and telling colours to light the frame, whether that be shades of black that take up most of them, or when various shades of red are used too. It's the perfect way to communicate the atmosphere of scenes and the building of a relationship on screen, and then shooting that using the types of movement and setup that Fraser did gives the whole film a distinct personality. The Batman is a beautifully shot picture with moments of simplicity, and it's clear that the focus is on the story rather than the spectacle, making this superhero film quite the example that stands out. There's nothing wrong with the way the more conventional comic book movies are filmed, and don't see this as a dig towards them, but I do think there is room to put more effort into the way shots are composed, how design choices are used to frame a sense of character, world building, and overall tone. I think at times it seems lazy when you plonk a few actors in front of a green screen and don't make much of an effort to make it look like those actors are actually there. It can take you out of it, especially when some of these films deal with real human issues and more important themes. It would be better to see more of an effort put into how the cinematography frames it all. But after examples like The Batman, there is a hope that more comic book films can really have their own visual language and craft images that are well thought out and are built to last longer. But that was my video discussing Greig Fraser's cinematography in The Batman. For the photographer, lighting the image yet also keeping the darkness to aid the characters was the main challenge in filming this story. It becomes difficult when the main character wears a dark suit in a city that's dark as noir, even in the middle of day. But some of the examples I've discussed meant that he was able to really capture the essence and tone that Batman should be connected with, and overall, it set a complete feeling mood throughout the film. Many comic book projects tend to jump around in tone and filmmaking, with the cinematography and editing shifting around in quite a wacky and quick way, and that can really take you out of it at times. Not all the time depending on the project, but I do see it more than often. But The Batman had a focused approach across its production, and the cinematography is no exception. Greig Fraser and Matt Reeves chose to shoot The Batman using digital on custom designed anamorphic lenses, and they were set up to the specific look that they wanted for the film. It was big format photography that allowed them to see exactly what they were getting, and they could adjust aspects and the lighting on the go. Taking the shot digital footage, transferring it to a film negative, and then ultimately scanning it back into digital allowed for a much more noir-esque finish too. This was something similar to the process that the cinematographer opted for with Dune, and it's now resulted in two of the most beautiful looking blockbusters in years, shot by the same cinematographer. It was all about visually immersing you in a world and using techniques that would fully capture that across the board. I'm excited to see what Fraser does next with his cinematography, not just in the Batman sequels, but also in other projects too, because after Let Me In, Rogue One, Dune, and now The Batman, he's proven that he's a composed cinematographer, fully interested in capturing the story and characters on the page through effective imagery and lighting. But what do you think towards how The Batman was shot, and what are some of the things that you picked out in certain scenes surrounding regarding Greig Fraser's cinematography. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. For more breakdown videos on the Batman and future projects, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.